Right now, the world is holding its breath. American bombers have just leveled key Iranian missile sites, and the absolute truth is that most people have completely missed what this actually means for the global future. This is not just another distant military operation. This is a massive geopolitical earthquake, and the aftershocks are about to hit the global economy, energy markets, and international security in ways no one is prepared for. If understanding the hidden truth behind global breaking news is important, hitting the subscribe button right now ensures the most accurate, unfiltered updates will always be available as the explosive situation develops. Now, diving straight into the facts. On the surface, the headlines report a massive, coordinated strike deep inside Iranian territory by United States and Israeli forces. This involves long-range bombers, precision missiles, and stealth technology working together to wipe out ballistic missile launchers, underground production facilities, and heavily guarded military bases. The sky over Tehran and central Iran lit up with explosions as key defense systems were systematically dismantled. But looking past the explosions reveals a much deeper, more dangerous reality. Hitting these specific missile sites was not just about stopping a few rockets. It was a calculated move to completely blind and paralyze one of the most heavily armed military forces in the Middle East before a massive retaliation could be launched. By destroying these mobile launchers and underground depots, the striking forces are racing against time. The strategy is clear: destroy the missiles on the ground before they can be fired, because if thousands of ballistic missiles take flight all at once, no defense system in the world has enough interceptors to stop every single one. This is a high-stakes chess match where a single miscalculation could ignite a global firestorm. When a superpower uses its heaviest bombers to crack open underground bunkers and destroy advanced missile technology, it sends a chilling message to every other nation on Earth. The rules of modern warfare have completely changed overnight. The objective is no longer just containment or negotiation. The objective is the total elimination of a threat, regardless of the global consequences. And the immediate reaction from the target proves that this conflict is rapidly spinning into uncharted territory. The immediate fallout from these targeted bomber strikes extends far beyond the smoking craters in the Iranian desert. To understand what is truly happening, look at the global markets, which are currently in a state of absolute panic. The very first thing that happens when a strike of this magnitude occurs in this specific region is a massive shock to the global energy supply. Iran sits right next to the Strait of Hormuz. This is a narrow waterway where nearly a quarter of the world's daily oil supply passes through on massive cargo ships. The threat of this strait closing sends terrifying ripples through every major economy. When missiles are flying and heavy bombers are dropping payloads, that critical waterway essentially becomes a chaotic war zone. The immediate reaction from global traders is pure fear, and oil prices instantly shoot through the roof. But what does that actually mean for the everyday person waking up to this news? It means the cost of living is about to surge in a dramatic way. When global fuel prices spike, the cost to transport food to the grocery store, medicine to pharmacies, and everyday goods to shelves skyrockets right along with it. This single military action has the direct power to trigger a brand new wave of crushing inflation worldwide, hitting household wallets and savings accounts almost overnight. Yet, the devastating economic shockwave is truly just the beginning. The total destruction of these advanced missile sites completely shatters the fragile balance of power across the globe. For years, powerful alliances have been quietly forming in the shadows. Superpowers have built deep strategic military and economic ties with the Iranian government. When American bombers actively destroy vital Iranian military infrastructure, those heavy-hitting global allies are immediately forced into a dangerous corner. They must decide whether to silently step back or aggressively step in. And if they decide to step in, A contained regional conflict instantly transforms into an uncontrollable global showdown. Furthermore, the destruction of these underground missile bases immediately triggers a massive activation of deeply entrenched proxy forces all across the Middle East. Heavily armed groups operating across Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq do not even need direct orders to respond to this event. The explosive strike on their primary supplier is viewed as an absolute declaration of war against their entire interconnected network. The coming retaliation will not just be traditional armies fighting on a battlefield. It means vital commercial shipping lanes are suddenly under extreme threat. It means international military bases are placed on the highest possible alert. The entire region has become a massive powder keg, just waiting for one tiny spark. Now, look closely at what happens the exact second those heavy bombers leave Iranian airspace. The retaliation will not be limited to a physical battlefield. The most terrifying response will happen in complete silence, traveling right through the global internet. The destruction of those physical missile bases immediately unleashes an invisible, highly sophisticated cyber war. For over a decade, massive networks of state-sponsored hackers have been preparing for this exact moment. Their targets are not just military bases or government buildings. Their targets are the civilian power grids that keep the lights on, the banking networks that hold every digital dollar, and the public utilities that supply major cities. When a military force loses its ability to fire physical rockets, it will absolutely launch a digital arsenal instead. Imagine waking up to find financial applications completely frozen, communication networks down, and the electricity cut off with absolutely no warning. This is the brutal modern reality of retaliation. The strike on those missile sites flips a massive switch on a shadow war, and everyday citizens suddenly become the front line. A coordinated cyber attack on global financial infrastructure causes just as much devastating panic as a physical explosion, completely freezing supply chains and halting daily life in a matter of hours. At the exact same time, a terrifying physical reality is unfolding in the skies across the Middle East. The bomber strike was designed to destroy long-range missiles, but it is impossible to eliminate every single weapon hidden deep underground. What remains will be used in a desperate, highly destructive strategy known as the swarm. To overwhelm advanced defense shields, the immediate retaliation involves launching thousands of cheap, deadly drones mixed with the remaining heavy rockets, all fired at the exact same moment. The math behind this is simple and incredibly dangerous. The advanced defense systems only have a limited number of interceptor missiles, and eventually the protective shields run completely out of ammunition. This terrifying reality forces massive aircraft carriers and global military bases to go into total lockdown. Every single ship and international military installation in the region is now sitting with a massive target on its back. The very moment one of those retaliatory swarm attacks slips through the defense net and hits a major military asset, the entire conflict escalates from a targeted bomber strike into a full-blown, undeniable war. The threshold for total global chaos has never been lower, and the clock is ticking faster than anyone realizes. The real danger hidden beneath the surface of these bomber strikes is the ultimate nightmare scenario that world leaders refuse to discuss in public. When heavy bunker-busting bombs crack open the earth to destroy conventional missile sites, the dust settles on a terrifying question. What happens to the highly secretive nuclear development facilities? By launching an unprecedented strike on the military shields protecting these areas, a massive red line is permanently crossed. The strategy of diplomatic pressure is now completely dead. The immediate aftermath forces a dangerous acceleration. A nation that feels its very existence is under attack will no longer play by the rules of international inspectors, and the destruction of conventional defense capabilities creates a chilling motivation to rush toward the ultimate weapon. The timeline for a nuclear breakout no longer stretches across years. It instantly collapses into weeks or even days. This is exactly why global intelligence agencies are currently in an absolute state of panic behind closed doors. The bomber strike, meant to neutralize a threat, may have actually triggered the one scenario it was designed to prevent. Meanwhile, the psychological warfare unleashed on the public is operating on a level never seen before. Watch how the flow of information completely fractures media on all sides, immediately flood the networks with entirely different realities. One side claims a flawless surgical victory that eliminated a massive danger. The other side broadcasts images of destruction and promises an apocalyptic revenge. This is a deliberate, highly calculated information war designed to confuse, divide, and terrify the global population. When people cannot agree on basic facts during a global crisis, panic in the streets multiplies instantly. Markets crash, not just from the disruption of oil, but from the paralyzing uncertainty of what tomorrow brings. Governments are suddenly forced to prepare emergency broadcast systems and stockpile strategic reserves of food and fuel. The invisible dominoes are falling faster than anyone can track. A targeted military strike on a desert missile silo has violently transformed into a psychological and logistical nightmare for every major city on the planet. The immediate shockwaves from these bomber strikes are entirely rewriting the map of global alliances right before our eyes. The days of fighting, quiet proxy wars in the shadows are officially over. By launching heavy bombers directly into Iranians' airspace, the striking forces have forced every major superpower to pick a side. Right now, with zero room for neutrality, when the dust clears from the destroyed missile sites, the entire world is suddenly fractured into two heavily armed camps, staring each other down, with fingers hovering dangerously close to the trigger. Look exactly at what happens to the skies above us. Almost instantly, global aviation authorities slam the brakes on international travel. Massive chunks of the map become absolute no-fly zones. Commercial airlines are forced to reroute thousands of flights, creating incredible logistical chaos and leaving millions stranded. But this is not just a frustrating delay for travelers. It is a massive red flag, signaling that the skies are no longer safe for civilian aircraft. When advanced anti-aircraft defense systems are locked and loaded, and military jets are scrambling across multiple continents, the risk of a catastrophic accident involving a passenger plane skyrockets to terrifying levels. The disruption on the ground is just as severe. Global supply chains are violently paralyzed. Major shipping companies immediately refuse to send cargo vessels anywhere near the conflict zones. This means the vital flow of electronics, manufacturing components, and raw materials grinds to a devastating halt. Factories thousands of miles away from the explosions are suddenly forced to shut down because they simply cannot get the parts they desperately need. The economic bleeding spreads incredibly fast, turning a targeted military strike into a global financial disaster that affects every single industry on the planet. Governments around the world are now forced onto an extreme emergency footing. National security threat levels are raised to maximum capacity. Borders are suddenly locked down, and domestic military forces are mobilized to protect critical city infrastructure from the inevitable retaliation. The bomber strike did not just destroy missile launchers hidden in a desert. It completely destroyed the very illusion of global stability. The world is now standing on the absolute edge of a completely new, unpredictable global conflict, and the very next move will determine the fate of millions. When the heavy bombs drop over there, the panic instantly hits the streets back home. The retaliation is not just incoming rockets. It is the invisible, highly dangerous threat waking up inside every day. Borders, watch very closely what happens to your own city. Authorities are quietly deploying heavily armed guards to water treatment plants, power stations, and major transit hubs. The threat of hidden operatives activating is no longer a movie. The plot, it is the immediate, terrifying reality. The government will never say this loudly because they desperately want to prevent total public panic. But the sudden presence of military personnel in civilian areas tells the true story. The second the news of the bomber strikes breaks, basic human nature takes over completely. People immediately rush to the stores in pure panic. Grocery store shelves are completely emptied of basic survival supplies. In a matter of hours, canned food, bottled water, and vital medicine disappear instantly. At the exact same time, terrified citizens rush to pull cash from the banks, absolutely horrified that inevitable cyber attacks will wipe out their digital savings. This creates a crushing pressure on the local economy that no system is built to handle. A military strike thousands of miles away instantly triggers absolute survival mode in quiet neighborhoods all across the world. Now, look directly at the most dangerous trap of all. The leaders who ordered the heavy bombers to strike those underground missile sites are now locked in a terrifying corner. If they back down now, the enemies will simply rebuild stronger and strike back much harder. But if they push forward, they drag the entire globe into a catastrophic war that no nation can actually win. There is no diplomatic off-ramp left anymore. Emergency phone lines between superpowers are completely dead. Ambassadors have fled. The chilling silence between these rival nations right now is far more terrifying than the sound of the actual explosions. Every time a breaking news notification pings, millions hold their breath. Normal, everyday life simply stops. The sheer psychological weight of living on the absolute brink of global destruction changes a society overnight. People are suddenly waking up to the terrifying fact that the safety they always took for granted was just an illusion. The real consequences of these bomber strikes have only just begun. The final piece of this terrifying puzzle is the absolute realization that the world we lived in yesterday is officially gone forever. When those United States bombers completely wiped out the Iranian missile sites, they did not just destroy concrete and steel, they completely destroyed the old rules of global security. We have crossed a massive, invisible line in the sand, and there is absolutely no turning back. The history books will point to this exact moment as a single spark that changed the entire century. Everything known about money, borders, and everyday safety is being entirely rewritten as we speak. Look closely at the leaders scrambling on television screens right now. The panic in their voices is incredibly real. They know that the next few days will determine the survival of entire nations. The massive dominoes are falling, and they are falling fast. A sudden military strike intended to bring rapid peace has instead unlocked a terrifying new era of absolute uncertainty. The global superpowers have placed all their chips on the table, and they are playing a very dangerous game of chicken with the fate of humanity. The total silence following the massive explosions is just the deep breath before the final plunge. It must be understood that mainstream headlines will never tell the full story of what is happening in the shadows. They will try to calm the public and hide the truly terrifying reality of the massive supply chain collapses, the hidden cyber wars, and the secret military movements happening right outside the door. But the truth is entirely undeniable. The absolute foundation of the global system has been violently cracked open. The coming days will test the limits of every single global alliance and every single local community. This is exactly why staying ahead of the breaking news is an absolute necessity. The bombers have dropped their payloads, the old world is completely gone, and the global countdown has officially begun.